killed 17. Also, a body found in Shoal Creek in Joplin is identified. Also, we'll hear how Little Rock, Arkansas is being impacted by the latest COVID surge.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Police arrest a man after a stabbing in Pittsburgh. This is KOAM News at Noon. I'm Zach Dodge. It happened in the 400 block of West 6th Street. Authorities say a 40-year-old man suffered multiple stab wounds to the face and abdomen. After investigating, they identified 50-year-old Jose Flores Velez as a suspect and arrested him later that day. Police found he had an arrest warrant out of Crawford County for a bond violation on an original charge of domestic battery. They're holding him without bond and requesting a charge of aggravated battery with a deadly weapon. The victim was later released from the hospital after receiving treatment. 2 are in serious condition following a crash in Cherokee County. Authorities say it happened on Highway 69 south of Columbus on Sunday. They say 36-year-old David Rice of Grove, Oklahoma, and 34-year-old Johnny Barnes of Baxter Springs were slowing down to make a right-hand turn when they were rear-ended by an F-350 driven by 65-year-old John Lopp of Columbus. Rice and Barnes were both transported to Freeman Hospital with serious injuries. Missouri State Highway Patrol investigates the drowning of a boy at Table Rock Lake. Authorities say a 3-year-old from Nixa was left unattended at the Mill Creek Park swim area at Table Rock, where he drowned. He was flown to Cox Hospital in Branson, where he was pronounced dead. Authorities say they've identified a body found Friday evening in Shoal Creek in Joplin. The Joplin Police Department says it was 46-year-old Brandon Vickers of Joplin. Rescue crews from Joplin, Neosho, and Reddings Mill recovered Vickers' body from Shoal Creek near McKindo Park after kayakers spotted the body. Officials say detectives are conducting an active death investigation. Today marks 3 years since the Table Rock Lake duck boat accident that killed 17 people. On Friday, prosecutors brought new charges against 3 people connected to the accident. 3 employees of Ride the Ducks Branson attraction now face 63 felony charges. They are Captain Kenneth Scott McKee, General Manager Charles Balsell, and Manager on Duty Curtis Lanham. All 3 face 17 felony counts of first-degree involuntary manslaughter, and McKee faces 12 additional charges. Now we're going to go over to Michael Hayslip with our first look at the forecast.
Tell you what, Zach, for July, as a matter of fact, I say it's mid-July right now, but realize by the time we get to tomorrow, being the 20th, we're pushing into the latter third of the month.
Right.
We're going to get spoiled temperature-wise, but you know what? We deserve that coming off of everything that we had from Friday all the way through Sunday. We still got parts of the 4 states that are underwater, quite frankly, so we'll take a little partly cloudy skies and a beautiful range line in 7th Street in Joplin. Look at that traffic. Where's everybody going on this Monday afternoon? Probably trying to get a little fresh air out there because it is absolutely delightful as we sit at 81 degrees. And that humidity, perfect, dropping all the way down to 65%. Let's roll 80 in Pittsburgh. Still got some high 70s that we're talking about in Fort Scott and Nevada, though Monetton at 79 and 82 right now in Miami, and a clear Skywatch storm tracker. One thing we will be keeping our eyes on is just down to the south. Now, most of the stuff is rolling right there through the Arklatex region. That's way too far south for us. But you see a little bit bubbling up just on Fort Smith, trying to make its way into northeast Oklahoma. Not going to pose any threat by any means. And actually, all things considered, you'll notice, look at the upper plains where the jet stream is. Huge difference. They're actually boiling today. We're going to be comfortable in the mid-80s. This is just hard to beat. Now, let's talk about that rain down from the south. You see that little scattered rain trying to work through. Nothing hard. Probably lasts about 5-10 minutes. And then after it moves through, you'll notice after sunset, we are clear. And as a matter of fact, we are so clear that we don't have to worry about rain again until we get a slight chance on Thursday. Push into the weekend, we'll be fine. So, Zach, what that means is we're going to update our flood warnings specifically for our rivers coming up in just a little bit because we've already had about 3 of them expire since the morning show.
Very cool. That's good to hear. It'll be nice to see those warnings kind of continue to drop off.
Wane as the days go by.
Right.
Yes.
But we'll check back in with you here in just a little bit. Okay. Thanks, Michael. Cases of COVID-19 are up in 50 states, something that hasn't happened since January. Our neighboring state to the south, Arkansas, is no exception. 12 out of every 100 people have tested positive and hospitals are overwhelmed. David Bagnod reports from Little Rock.
I thought the vaccine was a hoax.
42-year-old Lamonte Boyd, a married father of 3, says he didn't listen to the doctors or even his wife when she got the COVID vaccine and told him he should too.
What did you think of COVID before you got sick, Mr. Boyd?
I brushed it off. I thought it was a joke.
There are going to be a lot of people watching who don't want to take the vaccine. What would you say to them?
Well, I tell those who don't want to take the vaccines, you playing Russian roulette with your lives.
Boyd was diagnosed with COVID-19 nearly 2 weeks ago. He developed pneumonia in both of his lungs and still.
Right now, as we talk, my wind is short. That's why, I'm really gasping for air now.
Arkansas has the 3rd lowest full vaccination rate in the country. A little over 1 in 3 people here have gotten both of their shots. The state is now in its 3rd surge, says Dr. KOAM Patterson, who is chancellor at Arkansas's only academic medical center.
To put it into perspective, our team is in the 4th quarter right now, or maybe even double overtime. This is not the first quarter for this team. They're tired. It's tough.
Dr. Patterson has stood alongside the governor many times over the last year, educating Arkansans about how effective the vaccines are. To those people who are still skeptical, he says this.
Help me to understand who would convince you. If I haven't convinced you, help me to understand who would, and I will find that person and we will talk to you.
I regret it, not getting the COVID vaccination.
This 62-year-old woman did not want to give us her name, but she did want to speak for this story.
It's hard to breathe, so I have to have oxygen. You can see it on me 24/7, and then there's occasions where I cough and I can't stop.
What would you say to all those people who are spreading misinformation about the vaccine?
It's a life or death sentence. It's not a joke.
As the school year approaches, local health experts say now is the time for eligible students to get their COVID-19 vaccine. That's what several students did in Pittsburgh on Friday. The Crawford County Health Department held a vaccine clinic for students, saying getting students vaccinated is the next big step in fighting the pandemic. We spoke to a few students to hear why they decided to get the shot.
I am involved in a lot of activities and stuff, and so having a vaccination makes it easier for me to be involved in that without risk of getting quarantined and stuff.
No more huge precautions or huge stuff we have to do, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Crawford County Health Department put on the clinic with the help of the Kansas Department of Health and Environment. That's a look at today's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Up next on KOAM News at Noon.
Restaurants that survived this past year are now facing a new set of hurdles. I'm Dylan Thomas with the story of one operation that opened just as the pandemic hit.
And later, a melt-in-your-mouth flavor explosion. You won't want to miss this recipe from the Mr. Food Test Kitchen. Topping Nation Watch, around 90,000 restaurants closed during the pandemic, according to the National Restaurant Association. And those that are operating still face challenges. CBS's Dylan Thomas has the story.
Here you go, ladies.
Sabrina Holm and her husband Craig Henry followed their dream to start JoJo's Barbecue in Fort Collins, Colorado. But just as they opened their doors last year, growing coronavirus cases shut down much of the economy.
It got a little scarier and scarier as each day went by, the news changed.
They had to close their small dining area, focusing instead on delivery and takeout.
Our growth might be low and slow, but we're just grateful to be here and we're grateful to have a business.
JoJo's is housed right here inside Munchie's Market, which allowed them to stay open through the pandemic when so many others could not survive. According to Data Essential, 11.5% of restaurants have shut down permanently. That's more than 1 out of every 10. Places that are open face major challenges, including a lack of workers, higher costs, and delivery delays, which caused this Michigan restaurant to temporarily take a popular item off the menu.
Telling a guest that we're out of chicken, it's just a sentence I never thought I would say, but we legitimately just couldn't get the chicken.
Restaurants are still dealing with a crushing amount of debt that they've taken on over the past 15 months when they were forced to be closed.
Sean Kennedy from the National Restaurant Association is asking Congress to deliver another round of relief to the Restaurant Revitalization Fund.
This project could be an absolute lifeline for the restaurant industry, the nation's second largest private sector employer.
JoJo's is dealing with rising prices for meat.
Here you are, my friend.
But they hope business will pick up now that Americans are experiencing a new taste of normalcy. Dylan Thomas, CBS News, Fort Collins, Colorado.
Still to come on KOAM News at Noon, Mr. Food.
If you're craving a roast that's packed with flavor, is super juicy, and tastes just as good the next day as the day you made it, look no more.
But first, Michael Hayslip returns with your complete forecast.
You know, Zach and I were talking earlier, it's hard to believe that come tomorrow we're going to be counting down the latter third of the month of July. Now, a positive aspect of all that is our normal average high for this July 19th. That'd be about 91 degrees. We're going to get all week long before we press back up into the 90s. One thing I have also too been pointing out as we do our daily almanac each and every day is that, remember, that month precipitation total that you're seeing, that is simply off of Joplin Regional Airport. I am very well aware that people in Labette County got 9 inches on Thursday night into Friday alone. But that being said, it's going to be mild today and not even hot the rest of the week. I just call it warm for the most part as the clouds are helping us out, as are the wind arrows coming in from the north. And we'll get there in just a little bit, but let's look at our temperatures as it's 80 in Lamar and Carthage, 82 in Independence, and though Miami in there as well. Still got high 70s hanging on in Iola, Fort Scott, and Nevada. You know, there's been times, even in the middle of this month, we were talking about the noon show having temperatures close to 90. All right, so here's what we've got rain-wise. Everything's staying way down to the south, and even when we put on the lightning tracker, we're not seeing anything pop up right there, so that's great news. Now, we're going to see a little bit try to filter in on this band that's rolling through eastern Oklahoma into western Arkansas, but it's not going to have too much of a northerly push. We do not even show up in the old severe thunderstorm risk map. What we do show up in, flood warnings. River specific will go from west to east. And we'll find our silver linings in all this. The flood warning for the Verdigris River has been extended all the way until Tuesday morning. Original expiration time was going to be today, as a matter of fact, about 4 o'clock today. But this part of the Verdigris right here, that flood warning has been allowed to expire. So now we're just running really from south of Independence down to the state line in Coffeyville. As far as the Neosho River, it's been extended. It's been extended until Tuesday night instead of Tuesday afternoon. Silver lining, everything north of Oswego has been allowed to expire. It's the gauges in Oswego, Chetopa, and Miami Commerce area that we're going to pay attention to. And then the flood warnings, this is a triumvirate right there of the Osage, Little Osage, and Marmonton. That one has been constant. Right now we're going to keep it down to Wednesday. Now, speaking of things that make a difference geographically, look at these temperatures right here. 91 in Billings, 85 in Cody, 83 up there in Grand Forks. That's right on the Canadian border. We're cooler than them. And even with the jet stream riding high above the border, we do not have to worry about that heat wave that they're in the midst of penetrating down south and getting upon us, partly because of the clouds, partly because of a little north breeze, that we are able to stay in the mid-80s all day. We talked about that rain down to the south. There you go. Quick hitter. See a raindrop probably lasts about 5-10 minutes. Trace amounts of accumulation. And then, Zach, yeah, while we do gradually warm up, remember, we started this by talking about our average high. We don't have to worry about that till Friday.
Very cool. Sounds good. Gonna be a nice week then.
And not a whole lot of worries about humidity. That's also a key factor.
Yeah, that's gonna be really cool. Thanks, Michael. We take this time now to honor today's four-state hero. Lawrence Harris served in the U.S. Army from 1967 to 1968 in Vietnam. The Chinook, Kansas native earned 2 Purple Hearts. We're proud to salute Lawrence Harris, our four-state hero. You see it here, barbecued pork. Do I really need to say any more? Let's get me off camera and get to the food in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen.
When a recipe is really good and flavorful, We often try to find fun and creative ways to describe it. And when we tasted the pork roast that we're sharing with you today, the first word that came to mind was firecracker, since the flavors just exploded when we tasted it. Let me show you how to make it so you can have it for dinner tonight. The first thing we do is cut a crisscross pattern on the top of a boneless pork roast. Cutting this pattern will help our glaze stick to the pork while ensuring that there's lots of flavor in every bite. Now, we season it with some salt and pepper and place it in a roasting pan. To make it extra special, we glaze it with a mixture of barbecue sauce, orange marmalade, a bit of hot pepper sauce, and a little horseradish. Then we'll spoon half of this over the roast and into the oven it goes. Then after a bit, we'll spoon on the rest of the glaze and cook it until it reaches 160 degrees. After it rests for a few minutes, cut it across the grain and serve it with the pan drippings. It's full of flavor, but not too spicy. One forkful, and you'll know exactly why we were so excited about this. To get the recipe for our firecracker barbecue pork, simply head over to our website. I'm Howard in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen, where today we found an explosive way for you to say, ooh, it's so good.
You can find this recipe along with a lot more good food from the Mr. Food Test Kitchen online. Just go to our website, KOAMnewsnow.com. Now here's a look at the four-state market.
Chance for a little spotty afternoon shower every now and then moving in from the south, but no worries about any substantial accumulation. Enjoy what I would call almost mild temperatures for the latter third of July here until we get back up into the 90s, but we don't see that on the horizon until we get to the weekend.
Now Dow Quitt joins us with what's coming up at 5.
Yeah, at 5, the Delta variant is bringing a new and critical phase in the battle against COVID-19, especially for children. In the U.S., more than 4 million kids have been infected with the coronavirus, and doctors say the Delta strain is adding an extra threat. And we're going to hear from a 15-year-old who was hospitalized. Plus, women's participation in the workforce dropped to its lowest level since the 1980s during the pandemic. Now, a new initiative in Missouri is trying to get women back into the workforce. And after Governor Parson raises concerns about door-to-door COVID vaccine efforts, we're going to look at the latest perspective from one reporter in Springfield. You join us for those stories, a lot more, of course. It's all coming up today on KOAM News at 5.
And thank you so much for joining us for KOAM News at Noon. We'll see you right back here at 5 o'clock.